Top contenders Donald Cerrone and Raging Alec Winters will battle it out this Saturday in the main event of UFC Ottawa to get some clarity in the very murky waters of the UFC lightweight division. Hello everyone and welcome to MMA Fighting's UFC Ottawa preview show. My name is Danny Segura and I'll be the host of this program today, breaking all the action from the card with my fellow co-workers Jose Youngs and Alexander K. Lee, who's on site providing us top-notch coverage from the event. Let's get right into it. I mean, Donald Cerrone is a very interesting character. You know, most fighters in the UFC have maybe a chapter or two throughout their UFC career, but Cowboy has had plenty, several chapters just back to back. And just when you think he's done, he comes back and puts together a few wins. There's a lot of talk out there. Some people saying that he's washed. Some people saying that, his best days are over. Some others are saying, Cowboy 2.0 is out there. How do you guys assess, Cowboy and where he's at in his career?
You put it perfectly. Like, this is just the latest chapter in what is forever just an evolving Cowboy Cerrone. I mean, came in WEC lightweight. Already has the second most fights in UFC history. Jim Miller's been in the UFC way longer, and Donald Cerrone already caught up. Jumped to welterweight, jumped back down to lightweight. So he's by far, I'd say, one of the outside of the champions, one of the most popular fighters in the UFC. I mean, I've been to media days where he's not even the featured fighter, and he gets more interviews than the main event. So, like you said, latest chapter. I don't think he's washed, but I'd never like to see him cut down to lightweight. So it will be. I'm curious how a second cut to 155 will affect his performance after his last win against Alexander Hernandez.
Let's talk about, his opponent, Alec Winters, very interesting character. For a while, kind of like Cowboy, he had some rough things going on for him within the UFC, but obviously much more different. He was, at odds with the promotion. They weren't seeing eye to eye. He was also plagued with injuries. But all of a sudden, I get the sense that, all that is shifting. All of a sudden, he's getting main event slots, which he wasn't getting before. Top quality opponents, which he is now. And, the talk between him and the promotion has dialed down a little bit. Do you guys agree and do you guys sense the same thing that, there is a momentum shift in Alec Winters' career here?
I'll say first, for fans of Raging Al, unfortunately, when the topic of his previous, issues with UFC officials comes up, he's very calm and zen about it now. People have probably seen this in some of his interviews he's done. He's a little vague, kind of, as far as, when people ask, well, how exactly did this all get resolved? It's kind of like, well, we just worked things out. I grew up. They understood. They started to understand where I was coming from. So I don't know if we'll ever get a great answer as to how all that drama between him and the UFC finally kind of just got settled, which is maybe better, but just leave that stuff behind closed doors. Sorry for all the people out there who love gossip, but definitely, I think we saw in the Kevin Lee fight, he looks like a guy who's a little bit free of that burden. I think we saw a very mature Alec Winters, and he looked even better in that rematch than I think he did, in their first fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all stems from him filling in against Khabib Nurmagomedov when that whole week was just like, first Tony gets hurt and then Max gets pulled. That whole week was falling apart, and then that was the weekend Connor and the bus attack. So it was just incident after incident after incident. It could have gone down as one of the most. It is one of the most tumultuous weeks in UFC history. It could have ended in disaster. Alec Winters steps up on basically 1 day's notice because he was the only one that made weight. So the championship weight of 155 to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, which is a tall task with an 8-week camp, let alone a 1-day notice. Obviously came up short. It was a bunch of 50-43s, 50-44 cards. But after the fight, he kind of jokes about it now. He's like, yeah, I went the distance with the champion. Yeah, you got mauled, but he makes light of the situation. He took advantage of the situation. He took advantage of an option given to him that no one would turn down. And I think that really helps him in the eyes of the UFC, where if he had just said, no, I don't want to take that fight, he obviously wouldn't be where he is now. He lost to the champ, and then right away he got a main event fight on the last Fox card in Milwaukee against another lightweight contender. And now he's main eventing another card against arguably the most popular lightweight outside of Conor McGregor and Khabib in the entire UFC. So I think it all stems from Alec Winters being a company man, stepping up against Khabib Nurmagomedov, UFC 223.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that assessment. And that was here in Brooklyn. And, you know, we know in this business, if you scratch the UFC's back, they'll return the favor and scratch yours. So, you know, maybe that was the point where Alec Winters' relationship with the UFC turned. But let me ask you this. At the top of the show, you know, I mentioned how, you know, this is a very weird situation in the sense that there's no clarity in the lightweight division. You know, there's an interim champ right now, a real champion, a former interim champion. You got the money guy, Conor McGregor, as well, barking. It's a very, very weird situation. What's at stake here? I mean, what could a win do to either guy in this situation?
A win keeps them in contendership. I mean, we still have Justin Gaethje out there. I mean, Anthony Pettis, for all we know, could drop down to lightweight again after knocking about Wonder Boy. Kevin Lee has jumped up to 170, so we've lost contenders too. So a win won't get you a title shot, but it will keep you there. So eventually when we do get that interim title fight, whenever Tony Ferguson returns and when there is clarity, your name is there. Like we saw what happened when Max Holloway just kept fighting, when we had the Conor and Jose Aldo, when that whole, and then Chad Mendes had to step in and then they had to push the fight back. And then Max just kept fighting and he kept winning. So when the time came, there was no question that he was the next man up. And now look, he's arguably the greatest featherweight ever. So your Cowboy's never going to turn down fights. Alec Winters is obviously going to take the smarter fights, and being at the top, a lot of people are going to want to fight him. So a win just keeps the ball rolling and keeps them not right where they are, but when the dust finally settles in the lightweight division and their names are there, it's perfect if they just keep winning, obviously.
Alex, let me ask you this. A win, an impressive win, who would it help more, Alec Winters or Donald Cerrone? Who has more to gain here?
I think I'm just going to say Alec Winters because kind of coming off of Jose's point, I'm kind of going to say the same thing, but in a different way. I think this fight does almost nothing for either guy, which, again, it keeps them in place in the title contention, yes, but we've also seen sitting out also keeps you in place, as, you know, Miocic, the reverse Miocic, Cormier reverse, right? So sitting out and winning is the same thing. And again, I was defending the main event before because I think it's an awesome fight. That's, for me, is all I care about. It's an awesome fight for the fans and for, you know, anyone who gets to watch. But as far as contenders rankings, I don't know if it has any effect, especially since Alec Winters and Cerrone are both guys who like to stay busy. And I can't imagine either one holding out for even a number one contenders fight or a title fight, you know, if an opportunity to get another payday and main event another show comes along. So great fight. Stakes, if I'm being straight, man, I think fairly low. So not to take away from the fight itself should be great.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, AK. I mean, a win, yeah, it gets your name out there. Yes, your main event. You know, a win obviously doesn't hurt, but, you know, with the current standings at the lightweight division, I mean, I don't think it does a whole lot in the sense of climbing up the ladder, you know, closer to that title shot. But let me flip the script. What about loss? I mean, who would lose more as far as like stock wise if they were to lose? Either would it be Cabo Cerrone or would it be Al? AK, what do you think?
Alec Winters, definitely. Cerrone he's fairly, I mean, Teflon. He's also it's hard to say because he's so I don't say he doesn't care, but when he talks about the title, he's always almost said, other than before he fought Dos Anjos, where he made it sound like it was really important. That other than that one time, he's like, hey, if I fought for the title and won the title, it'd be great. If I lost, it doesn't matter. I feel like Alec Winters, as much as he said he's willing to fight anyone, I do think he really wants it. I do think he thinks he's as good as he's going to be, which is correct. I think he's at his peak skills right now, and he really wants that title. So it would hurt Alec Winters more.
Jose, do you agree with AK's assessment?
I mean, it will 100% hurt Alec Winters more. I mean, he wants that rematch against Khabib. It's obviously not going to happen. He fought for the interim title once, but I believe he's higher ranked. Cowboy's coming off his first fight in the lightweight division since his last loss to Dos Anjos. So, and a loss for Cowboy doesn't do much in the eyes of the fans. I mean, he lost to Leon Edwards in a fight in Singapore that I bet not a lot of people even knew about or watched because it was so early in the morning. And he's not hurting in the popularity department. But I will say, for what AK said, when he doesn't care, Cowboy doesn't care about the lightweight title anymore. When I was in Denver for his fight against Mike Perry, and he announced he was going to drop down to lightweight, he kind of switched his focus, and he's like, you know what? I want to win the belt now. It's the last thing that I haven't done. Let's go for the title. And then he hinted that there was a big name that they had offered him, and then he ended up fighting Alexander Hernandez. And he was like, yeah, the first fight that I hinted at didn't come through. And then the Conor fight didn't come through. So I think he does care about the title a lot more now. So obviously he wants to win. He wants to win no matter what, but a win would push him closer to that goal. But a loss for Iaquinta would hurt him way more in terms of falling from contendership.
All right, well, let's get official predictions. AK, how do you see this bout going between Cowboy Cerrone and Alec Winters?
I like Iaquinta. I like what I saw in the Kevin Lee fight. I like what I've seen in a lot of his fights, a lot of his wins recently. Even the Khabib fight, there was a lot that was commendable. I think youth, he said today, he kept simplified it maybe a little too much, that he's got a combination of both experience and also relative youth, I guess, compared to Cerrone and maybe some other fighters. So it sounds like a basic evaluation, but I agree. I think he's the younger fighter, skill for skill. I think he's right there with Cerrone, and I don't know if he'll. I'm thinking decision. I think Iaquinta by decision. I don't see him putting away Cowboy, but I think he does get that win, and for what it's worth, keeps himself in title contention.
Jose, how do you see this one going?
Well, I hate to agree, but I have to agree. I have Al winning. I liked what he said when I spoke to him after his Kevin Lee fight, where someone brought up the fact that Kevin Lee didn't look the same in there, and he interrupted. He's like, of course he didn't. Habib's worst fight was against me. Jorge Masvidal's worst fight was against me. Kevin Lee's worst fights was against me. He has a knack for making people look bad and feeling uncomfortable in the octagon. It's not like he's blowing them away with like just technical and power and grappling and wrestling. He just knows how to negate their strengths and use his strengths against them. When he said that, I'm like, you're 100% right looking back. I mean, he starts Diego Sanchez, he starts Joe Lozon, he starts Ross Pearson, and then he fought Masvidal to a split. But Masvidal we saw then is not the Masvidal we saw now, obviously. So that kind of makes that win a little more impressive. And then obviously he beat Kevin Lee. So I'm going to have to say Iaquinta is going to win. And I think it'll probably go very similar to the Cowboys fight against Leon Edwards, where Iaquinta just kind of outboxed him, was just a more technical fighter inside the octagon.
All right, well, with that out of the way, let's get to a couple other fights I want to talk about on this card. This card's not that deep, to be honest, but nonetheless, there are some interesting storylines I feel like we should talk about here. So let's talk about that co-main event. In the co-main event, it'll be a middleweight bout between Derek Brunson and Elias Theodorou. I mean, what can I say about this bout? Let's talk about Derek Brunson. I think for a few moments in his career, Derek Brunson looked like he was going to break into that top 5, and he was certainly given big opportunities to do so. I think the UFC saw something in him. I think going into the Robert Whitaker fight, people were considering Derek Brunson to be a legit contender. Then he got the Anderson Silva fight, which many people thought he won. He finished Lyoto Machida in the first round. I feel like that talk about Derek Brunson being this top contender or potentially become a top 5 contender has kind of dwindled away. It's no longer existent. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but if you guys do you think there's a path for him to get back? Because he is in a bit of a losing streak, and he is older. Jose, you wanna tackle that one first?
Sure. And I agree with you that there were moments, like looking back at his career. I mean, he was winning that fight against Joel Romero, and then he lost in the last round. And then he came in like way overconfident against Robert Whitaker. And we've all seen the picture of his chin just out there, and he got clipped and knocked out. People obviously, like you said, a lot of people believe he beat Anderson Silva. So those three, if he comes in with a good game plan against Whitaker, doesn't fade away in the final round against Yoel, and then like one judge gives him the decision against Anderson Silva, he might have already fought for the title. But now he's basically a measuring stick. But if he can get back to the top, the contendership, I think he definitely can, especially with this mass exodus of middleweights to the light heavyweight division. Like Luke Rocco leaving, Thiago Santos leaving, and Anthony Smith leaving opened a lot of room in the top 10, top 5. So obviously there's lightweight, there's a lot of questions in middleweight with Adesanya, and now Jack Hermanson has kind of shoved his name into the top 5. Brunson has a couple losses to Jacare. But because the middleweight division has lost so many fighters, I don't think there's the ladder isn't as high anymore. But so I think he can get get back, but it'll take a while.
AK, let me ask you this. For Theodoro, I mean, if you look at his record, he's only lost twice, and he's never really had, I mean, he's fought some tough guys, don't get me wrong, but it's safe to say that, you know, keeping in mind Derek Brunson's resume, this is probably the highest profile fighter he's ever gotten. Also, he is in a co-main event slot, but we've seen him kind of just linger around in sort of the mid-table of the middleweight division. We know what wins over Derek Brunson did to, you know, guys like Robert Whitaker, Israel Adesanya. Is this a possible opportunity for Theodoro to turn the corner here and really, you know, get his name out there and start becoming a top contender in that division?
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, if you look at it from MMA math standpoint, almost, it's Derek Brunson has only lost to. Let's look at the names: Adesanya, current interim champion; Anderson Silva, legend, longtime champion; Jacare Souza, twice former Strikeforce champion; Yoel Romero, world title contender. Who am I forgetting? I'm sure I'm leaving someone out. But Robert Whitaker, current middleweight champion. So those are all top 5 guys. Thus, if Elias Theodorou beats him, does that make him a top 5 guy? I don't think the math quite works that way, and a lot with Elias has to do with the fact that the man just needs an exciting finish. 8-2 in the UFC. I don't care who you're fighting. That's an awesome record. But his highlight reel, gosh, I mean, with respect to him, does he have a highlight reel? If you took like even the hardest strikes he's thrown, could you create like a fake like knockout reel for him? I'm not even sure you could. So again, I have so much respect for Elias and Derek, but what's really holding Elias back is I'm not even sure his quality of opponents. I mean, this would be a huge win if he beats Derek Brunson, but he just has to have some sort of finish. That's what it's about for him.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that one. All right, official prediction for this bout. Who do you guys got? AK, you want to go first?
I think I'm going Theodoro. I'm going to go full bias here. You know, got to stick my Canadian boy. I think Theodoro's going to pull it off. It has the potential to be a very ugly fight. Brunson, when he is not putting away people in the first round, there's a little bit of a, you know, if he comes out and he looks gun shy, it could be very bad for the fans. Maybe good for Elias, and so that's why I'm picking him to win. Probably another close decision, but hopefully he surprises us all and, you know, gets a submission or knockout or something.
Jose?
I'll pick Derek Brunson. I'll pick first round stoppage. I mean, looking at Elias's record, I mean, he hasn't really fought anyone outside of Thiago Santos, who we know now is just a murderer inside the octagon. He hasn't really fought a lot of guys that with that one punch knockout power or one head kick. And I remember that giant gash he had over his forehead when he fought Thiago. So I'll pick Derek Brunson, first round stoppage. I think he beat Dan Kelly in like 70 seconds. When Derek Brunson fought him, and then I believe Elias fought Dan Kelly to a decision a couple years ago. So just based off of MMA math, and I know Alex loves MMA math, I'll pick Derek Brunson by first round stoppage.
All right, well, let's talk about another fight, another fighter on this card. You know, you can say, you know, a veteran of the sport, man. I would go out there and say one of the greatest, you know, featherweights to compete at. You know, I would include him, you know, top 15 probably. We're talking about Cub Swanson. He's a bit on a rough streak right now. You know, he's coming off 3 straight losses. That is 2 finishes and 1 dominant decision loss to Frankie Edgar. Could Cub Swanson potentially be fighting for his UFC career? What do you guys think?
I don't think he's fighting for his UFC future at all. I mean, I think like looking at his last few losses, like Moicano, one of the top featherweights in the world, just fought Jose Aldo. Lost Frankie Edgar. Who hasn't lost Frankie Edgar? Brian Ortega just fought for the title. And then he fought a young Max Holloway, who's now arguably the greatest featherweight ever. So it's a very similar situation to Derek Brunson, where, yeah, he's lost a bunch lately, but look who he's losing to. I mean, he also took that fight against Artem in the main event. Like I think it was in Nashville. So yeah. That was his last win was a decision against Artem Lobov.
The greatest of all time.
Obviously not the highest caliber of opponent, but it might be one of those situations where he did the UFC a favor and he main evented against this guy. So the UFC will always remember that. And it's similar to Derek Brunson, again, where he's kind of like a measuring stick now for these guys like Brian Ortega, Renato Moicano, and even Max Holloway back then. I remember they asked Max in the octagon after his win, like, do you want to fight Cub Swanson next? And he's like, let's do it. And Cub was that measuring stick, and he is a father now. He has a lot of businesses. Like I spoke to him at UFC 227. He kept bringing up like all of these companies and clothing lines and coffee things he's working on. So I don't think he's fighting for his UFC career, just because he's done the UFC a lot of favors over the years.
Who do you guys got, Swanson or or Burgos?
I'm gonna pick Shane. I don't want to say he's gonna like blow the door off Cub. I think Cub's gonna. And when I said he wasn't fighting for his UFC future, I don't think if it does end after this fight, I think it's gonna be on his terms. I don't think he's fighting to keep his job as if he was gonna get cut. I think if he loses and he hangs him up, he's had a great career. But I'm going to pick Shane. Shane, he's younger, he's faster, he's in the prime of his career. Cub, like you said, is kind of on the down trail. Not the down trail, but he's not the Cub of old when he's fighting all of these like the Dennis Seaver fight and the Jose Aldo fight and all those fights. But I'll pick Shane. I'll say by decision.
AK, who do you got?
Let me tell you something, Jose. He may not be the Cub of old. He's old Cub now. And I'm just like, old Cub is great. Speaking as a fellow old guy, people don't need to know my age, but speaking as a fellow older guy, when you get this old man motivation and strength, and he has a lot to fight for, more than I do, all right? This man just had twins. He's got 3 kids under the Swanson household now. Call me sentimental. This man is fighting for love. And like I said, I believe possibly fighting for his job. The power of love, the power of fatherhood, that dad strength is going to push him. I agree, decision, but I'm going decision win for Swanson in what will be a fight of the night, barring some some absolute madness in the main event.
I like that passion, AK. AK, anything you want to highlight for this card? I mean, is there any interesting storyline that you've picked up, in media day as you were yesterday? Anything interesting from this card that you'd like to bring some light to?
I mean, just one thing I definitely got to do is shout out my Canadian boys who are also on the main card. Like Brad Katona. This guy's, I think, is a breakthrough waiting to happen. Maybe a little too quirky. Very few people have managed to do that, like that George St. Pierre quirk, and turn it into like being a superstar. But you can still become kind of a fan favorite, if not a box office draw. So Brad Katona, a tough fight, and Merab Davalishvili, that's also on the main card. That's gonna be a good one. And guys, watch out for Marc-André Berriot, who is making his debut. He was with the TKO promotion in Canada, champ with TKO. He'll be opening up the main card against Andrew Sanchez, Ultimate Fighter winner. And there's another man fighting for love, recently engaged. He's engaged to another fighter. So again, sentimental pick maybe, but Marc-André, I think, is going to have a nice debut. And who knows, maybe we seem to say it every time we come up north, we finally get some new Canadian stars to step into those GSP shoes.
Jose, anyone you'd like to highlight? Or any fight?
I'm going to drop all the way to the first fight of the night on the ESPN
that's the one I got.
Cards. Mitch Gagnon is returning to the octagon. I mean, I remember when he fought Renan Barão on that. I can't even remember. I believe it was the Machida CB Dalloway card. That was in 2014. He came up short, but I believe that was Renan Barão's first fight after the sauna incident where he collapsed cutting weight ahead of his rematch with TJ. So, and then Renan ended up winning, and then Mitch Gagnon just disappeared for a long time. And I remember thinking I never thought he was going to be champion, but he had like 4 or 5 wins in a row. I remember he like submitted Roman Salazar and Dustin Kimura and a couple other guys, and his only loss was to Brian Calloway, and then he disappeared. And then all of a sudden he was back. I found out he was fighting at UFC 206 when he was making the walk to the octagon. And now I see he's fighting in Ottawa, and I don't know. He always just stuck out in my mind. I'm glad he's back. And his last fight was more than 2 years ago. And he's fighting again. If he does win or lose, I hope he's a little more active. But I have to give Mitch Gagnon some love.
Yeah, for sure. I would have to agree with you. I think he made big waves when he was around and he was winning, but then, he had a few rough patches and then, he kind of fell off the radar. So I'm really curious to see how he looks. AK, you wanted to say something?
I want to say first, shouts to Sturgeon Falls, Ontario, which is where Mitch is from, and he fights out of Sudbury, so shouts there as well. But you guys are right, the inactivity is crazy. He's a talented guy. This will be his first fight since December 10th, 2016, so almost 900 days, and his second fight since December 20th, 2014, almost 1,600 days, 2 fights. So, I'm glad to see Mitch is back.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for helping me break down this card. Awesome job as always. You can follow Jose Youngs at Jose Youngs. You can follow Alexander Lee at Alexander K. Lee. You can follow me at Danny Segura TV. And you can follow MMAfighting.com that brought you this very own program at MMA Fighting. Keep it locked here at MMA Fighting. AK is giving us, top-notch coverage from Ottawa. Hopefully you enjoy the fights this weekend. Please give this video a thumbs up, and we'll see you guys next time.